What's up, guys? Welcome back to the UFC arena. We talking UFC 259. This card is stacked, and we ready. Let's go. Dominick Cruz versus Kenney. What do I think is gonna happen in this fight? I think it's a misconception that Dominick Cruz is not good anymore, that he can't win fights anymore, he's past his prime. He may be past his prime, but I definitely think that Dominick Cruz is still really good. If you look at the people that Dominick Cruz lost to, he lost to Cody Garbrandt when Cody Garbrandt had the performance of his life. That was an amazing performance by Garbrandt, one of my favorite fights. If you haven't seen that fight, Dominick Cruz versus Cody Garbrandt, please go see it. Cruz also lost to Henry Cejudo, and I mean, Henry Cejudo is a whole beast, so I don't really hold those two losses against him that much. And the guy he's taking on, Kenney, I don't think he has what it takes to beat Cruz, honestly. Kenney is a wrestler, but a kind of scrappy wrestler. He's an all-around fighter. He's good everywhere, but I wouldn't necessarily say he's excellent anywhere. But he has some good grappling, he has good scrambles, but I think Cruz has some underrated wrestling. Cruz's wrestling is really good. You'd never really see anyone taking down Cruz and holding him down, and he has some of the best time takedowns when he's ready. Like, Cruz has some takedowns where you're just like, oh my god, that was so smooth, that was so sweet, because of his movement. So I think that Kenney would not be able to implement the game that he would like on Dominick Cruz, which is grappling heavy. And I think that Cruz would be able to use his movement, he'd be able to use his anti-wrestling and his wrestling if he so desires to beat Kenney. So basically, I think that Cruz is better than Kenney almost everywhere. It'll be a close fight, but I have Cruz winning by a decision. Before I move on to the main card, I want to give a shout out to two fights on the prelims. I mean, this card is just so stacked. I would like to give a shout out to Joseph Benavidez versus Askarov. Askarov is an undefeated prospect. He has a wrestling heavy approach, which is interesting when you think that he's going up against Joseph Benavidez, who in my opinion is one of the best scramblers in the UFC. Like, a lot of these flyweights, it's hard to control them on the ground. They're just so scrappy and they're just so energetic all the time, and Joseph Benavidez is one of them. I think that this fight is going to be a war. There's just going to be transition after transition, and I think that Benavidez on the feet is a problem for a lot of people. I mean, don't be fooled by the fact that Davison Figueiredo destroyed Benavidez twice. That's just how special Figueiredo is. Benavidez is still very much a top fighter, and I think that this is Askarov's truest test here. If he could get over the hump that is Joseph Benavidez, then I think he's a legit title contender. However, I'm not sure. I think that Benavidez, he has a point to prove after those losses to Figueiredo, and I think that he's gonna come back strong and he's gonna serve as the gatekeeper. I think he's gonna win this fight by a decision. However, you never know how Benavidez is gonna look after those two fights with Figueiredo where he got utterly destroyed. But I'm still gonna stick with him. I have faith in him. So Benavidez via decision. And the next fight I'd like to give a shout out to is Yadong versus Phillips. Both of these guys are exciting young prospects. Phillips, his nickname is The Matrix, and the last fight I saw of him, woo, that boy looked like he really living in the Matrix. And while Yadong, we know about Yadong, he's coming out of that Team Alpha Male camp with Uriah Faber, and they usually produce good quality fighters. Song has some good striking, and I don't really have a pick in this one. I'm just interested to see what happens. Okay, fine. I'll go with The Matrix, Phillips, to win this fight because he impressed me more in his last fight. And I'll even say that he wins via third round TKO. Okay, let's get to the main event because this whole card is just so awesome. So we're starting off with Thiago Santos versus Aleksandar Rakic. This has potential to be fight of the night depending on which Thiago Santos shows up. these days Santos has been being a little more on the cautious side, so it could be a more strategic kind of sparring fight. But if Santos is the Santos that he used to be, this is a potential fight of the night. This fight is definitely between the two most explosive athletes on the card. Thiago Santos is ridiculous when it comes to explosion, and Aleksandar Rakic is the same thing. Like, these guys, are like ticking time bombs, and when they decide to go, it's just boom, explosion. So Thiago Santos is the more experienced one, and me personally, this might be a hot take, but I thought he won against John Jones, and I'm not the only one, but I rest my case, because after that he went and he lost to Glover. So I was really rooting for him in that Glover fight, but he disappointed me. So this fight versus Rakic, though, is a hard one. Rakic is no slouch. He's explosive, as I said before, and he's dangerous everywhere. He has knockout power, and it's hard to just hold him. Rakic in his last fight versus Anthony Smith was no joke. That boy beat Anthony Smith up, and it wasn't really a close fight. I think I'm gonna go with Rakic in this fight, because I believe the power and aggression which Rakic fights with would be a little too much for Santos. Santos is kind of shaky these days, but I definitely think Santos has the potential to win. I'm gonna go with Rakic, and I'm gonna say a second round stoppage, and I will say 60 Rakic, 40 Santos, with a little caveat that if the Santos that is motivated and powerful and explosive shows up, it's 50-50. Okay, next up we have Islam Makhachev versus Drew Dober, and this is a hard fight for Islam and of course for Drew, but there's a lot of hype behind Islam because, you know, his association with Habib. But Drew Dober is a really good fighter, especially as of late. He's been doing really well. He has a couple first round finishes, some good knockouts. His most impressive win, if you ask me, was his knockout over Nasrat Haqparast. For those who don't know, that's baby Kelvin Gastelum. That guy is really good, and to get a win over him the way that Dober did, that was pretty impressive. Islam is kind of like the boogeyman in this division that no one wants to fight because he's not highly ranked and everyone knows how good he is. Honestly, I think that Islam is pretty technically sound everywhere, and I think he's a better striker than Habib, but he's not as dominant as Habib was. Islam has one knockout loss in his entire career, which was quite a few years ago, but other than that, Islam has never lost. He's really good, he's strong, he's powerful. Drew Dober has some quick hands, and he's not afraid of anything. He's not afraid to grapple with Islam. He said so in his interview, and he's actually pretty likable. He has a kind of smug face. Like, if you just look at his face, he just looks smug, but when you actually listen to him talk, he's actually sounds like a really nice guy and a very pleasant guy as well. So for this fight though, I'm gonna go with Islam Makhachev. I just think that Islam is a little too powerful in terms of, I think he'd be able to take Drew Dober down, and I think he'd be able to control him on the ground. It's not going to be easy, but I think that just like Habib, he would be able to take him down several times. So take him down, he get back up, he take him down again, and these guys don't get tired of taking you down. And even if he's having issues taking Drew down on the ground, I don't think that the striking difference between the two of them is big enough where Drew will be able to knock out Islam on the feet. But I do see Drew Dober as a very dangerous opponent, and I feel like the more casual fans would not really realize how hard of a fight Drew Dober is. I'm gonna go with Islam Makhachev 60%, so 60-40. Next up, we have the first of 3 title fights, and boy, I'm excited for this one. Petr Yan versus Aljamain Sterling. Now, I'm from the Caribbean, so naturally I have to have a little bias to my boy Aljamain Sterling, you know, because he's from Jamaica. But I really like Petr Yan. He's kind of like a stone cold killer, you know. He doesn't play around. He doesn't show much emotion. He's just kind of stone-faced in there. He's always calm and collected, and you can see he enjoys fighting and he enjoys hurting people. That was clear in the Uriah Faber fight. Like, Yan was enjoying the destruction of Uriah Faber. I mean, we hadn't really seen people do Faber like that, and Yan just made it look easy. And then versus Aldo, that was a tough fight, but he weathered the storm and he was able to defeat Aldo as well. And Aldo is still very much a high level fighter. That's not a washed up Aldo, that's a very good Aldo that Yan beat there. People forget how young Jose Aldo is because he's been fighting for so long. But yes, if we're to focus more on the fight itself, right? Petr Yan has a boxing heavy approach, he has a strike heavy approach. Even though he likes boxing, he would throw front kicks, he would throw elbows. He's a pretty technically sound all-round striker. Aljamain Sterling, on the other hand, the Funk Master, his name is pretty appropriate in terms of like his striking. He has some pretty fluid striking. He is not necessarily hands up walking forward. He's very technical. He carries his hands low. He has a lot of movement. He has a lot of quick strikes, good body kicks, good jab. He's a pretty hard puzzle to figure out sometimes. With that being said, I would still give the advantage in the striking to Petr Yan. I think that he's just a little bit more technically sound and that he'll be able to deal with some of the flash that Aljo has on the feet. The real threat with Aljamain Sterling though comes on the ground. I think he has a big advantage over Yan on the ground. But no one holds down Yan. No one really takes down Yan and holds him down that much. So if Sterling could get the fight there, and if Sterling is able to hold Yan down, 100% Aljamain Sterling wins this fight. However, that is easier said than done, and I don't think that Sterling will be able to do it honestly. So even though he's from the Caribbean and that's my boy, I'm still gonna go with Petr Yan in this fight, and I'm gonna go by a 5-round decision. And still, next up we have Amanda Nunes versus Megan Anderson. And I ain't even gonna waste all the time on this one. This fight is taking place at 145 pounds. That division probably has like 5 fighters in it, if so much. Megan Anderson, she's a good fighter, she's a decent fighter. If you ask me personally, her UFC run hasn't even been that impressive, but because the division is so shallow, she had 2 good wins, and here she is fighting Nunes. Nunes is undoubtedly the greatest female fighter of all time. Anyone else that you could say possibly is greater, she already beat them. She beat Ronda, she beat Holly, she beat Jermaine, she beat Cyborg. Every single champion, she has beaten them. She's beaten Miesha Tate as well. So she's beaten Valentina Shevchenko twice, even though the second fight was pretty close. But yes, there's no debate. Nunes is the greatest of all time, and I don't really see what Megan Anderson brings to the table that will allow her to beat Amanda Nunes. She doesn't have the same striking as a Jermaine Durandamy. She doesn't have the same grappling as a Miesha Tate or Ronda Rousey. She's long, she's lanky, she has good striking, but so does Amanda, and Amanda is powerful. So I think we're gonna see another destruction take place in this fight. I'm gonna go with Amanda Nunes by TKO or KO, and I'll say second or third round. Now let us go to the main event of the evening. Israel Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz. Ooh, this is a good one. Let me just start off by saying, let's enjoy this ride while it lasts, because right now we are witnessing Adesanya in his prime, and he's fighting very frequently. How often do we see the biggest stars in the sport fighting so often? Right? It's a rare sight to see. So let's enjoy this ride while it lasts. This reminds me of McGregor's rise to the top. Those were some fun and exciting times. Those were some of the best years in the UFC, if you ask me. Unfortunately, now Adesanya is doing the same thing. This is Adesanya's time, guys. So when it's over, people are going to look back on these years and say, wow, remember when Adesanya was coming up and he was running things in the UFC? Yeah, that was good. With all of that being said, this fight versus Yan, in my opinion, is by far Adesanya's most dangerous fight in the UFC. And that's no knock on Izzy's previous opponents, that's just the level of respect I have for Yan. But when I say dangerous, in this case, I'm referring to threat level and toughness. Adesanya has never faced a more threatening opponent in the UFC. Yan is more powerful than anyone Izzy has fought, including Yoel Romero, including Whittaker, including Gastelum, including Costa. Yan is dangerous. One touch from Yan and Izzy will go to sleep. I have no doubt that Yan could knock out Izzy. He's 100% capable of knocking Izzy out. With that being said, Izzy is very hard to hit. Izzy is so elusive. Izzy is so calculated. He keeps distance. He controls distance really well. He's so quick, and that speed helps him to be very evasive and helps him to avoid a lot of power strikes. So Izzy definitely is going to have the speed advantage in this fight. Yan, on the other hand, obviously going to have the power advantage, and I think Yan might have the grappling advantage as well. It's usually harder to grapple with someone who's significantly stronger than you. So Izzy is really going to have to move his feet. He's going to have to be on his bicycle when necessary in order to stay away from the grappling exchanges with Yan. However, Izzy is no slouch on the ground either. I'm pretty sure that Izzy can handle himself on the ground just enough so that he could get up. I think he could threaten with submission so that he could get back to his feet, and I also think he could look for his opponents to try to explode to the feet. So I'm not saying that if the fight touches the ground, Adesanya is going to lose. No, but I do think that there's danger on the ground as well. There's a lot of danger on the feet because of Yan's power, but it's hard to think of anyone in the UFC that is more dangerous on the feet than Israel Adesanya in terms of pure striking. That man, it's beautiful to watch. His speed, his feints, his setups, nothing is by chance when Adesanya is striking. He knows exactly what he's doing. He has a plan and he sticks to his plan, and he is able to adjust depending on how the fight goes. I think if this fight stays on his feet, Adesanya's chances of winning go way up, and I do see him as the favorite to win this fight if it stays on his feet. I would say Yan has more than just a puncher's chance to win this fight, because Yan is not just powerful with his punches, he's powerful with his kicks as well. We saw what he did to Dominick Reyes. Dominick Reyes looked like he got hit by a car after that fight. The man's nose was twisted almost off his face. His side was red from all those body kicks. Like, Yan has power in everything that he throws. That legendary Polish power is not a joke. So Izzy needs to be gone. He can't be there to be hit by Yan, that's for sure. With all that being said, I'm gonna have to go with Israel Adesanya to win this fight. It's very hard to bet against Adesanya, especially in a striking affair, which is what I think this would be. I think one of the best parts of Israel Adesanya's takedown defense is that he's hardly ever in position for you to take him down. He doesn't let himself get cornered very often, and he does not overextend on his strikes very often, which makes it hard to even get that initial distance to take him down. My prediction for this fight, Israel Adesanya by 3rd round TKO, because I think that Yan is going to get hit. I say the 3rd round because I think that Yan is tough enough to withstand the damage that Izzy is going to put on him for a while, but I think the accumulation of damage is definitely going to build up, and I say Adesanya is going to win this fight in the 3rd round by a stoppage. However, it's a close fight and it's a dangerous fight. I will say 60% Adesanya, 40% Yan. Anyway guys, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope to see you all in the next one. Please remember to like, remember to subscribe for more content. We're going to talk about this once the fights are finished, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.